Hello, explorers, and welcome to Reach the World's Explorer program. For 25 years, Reach the World has inspired youth to become curious, confident, and compassionate global citizens through virtual exchange. My name is Tim, and today is our second live event with Reach the World Explorer, Peace Corps volunteer, and civil engineer, Jacqui. Jacqui's joining us today from Peru, where she'll be telling us a lot more about her work to safeguard local drinking water supplies and talk about fresh water and hygiene with the children in her community. So we're all very excited to learn more about that. And before we bring Jacqui on the camera, I want to welcome the teachers and students who are joining us live today or will be watching this recording a bit later. Special shout out to Miss Hagen's class, who's waiting for us backstage to ask all their questions. Joining us from Hawaii today, we've got Miss Staples' class in Pennsylvania, Miss York's class in Michigan, Miss Ray's class in Colorado, Miss Bevan's class in New York, and Miss Flynn's class in Virginia. So welcome to you all. If you're tuning in via YouTube, please use the YouTube chat bar to let us know you're here, where you're joining from, and of course to share any questions you have for Jacqui as we go. We'll get to as many questions as we can in the next 30 or so minutes. And with all of that, I think we're ready to travel virtually to South America, and more specifically Peru. So let's bring our special guest, Jacqui, onto the stage. Hello, Jacqui.
Hi.
It is wonderful to see you again. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, Tim?
I am doing great. We're very, very excited to have you back with us. The last time we connected with you live from Peru, you told us a little bit about yourself and how you came to be in Peru. And today we get to dive a little bit more into what you're actually doing in Peru. And you've got all kinds of photos to share with us today and probably some stories to tell. And we've got Ms. Hagen's class already with their questions for you. So if you're ready, we'll dive right in.
Let's dive in.
Fantastic. Here are your photos, and take it away.
Sure. So as Tim mentioned, I'm a civil engineer. However, the majority of the work I do here in Peru revolves around water systems, which is a little bit of environmental engineering. A big component of that means that we have to both clean and disinfect the water systems. So this picture represents us with our PPE, our boots, our masks, getting ready to actually get inside of that water system and clean the walls with brushes. We bring chlorine with us to help kill all the germs and bacteria, clean all the algae off the walls. Sometimes we find baby frogs in there, all sorts of, sometimes crickets, other animals. And so we're hoping to clean all of that up. This is a picture. I also give a lot of sessions about how to keep our food clean. Because food can carry a lot of bacteria that can make us sick. So we teach people how to properly clean fruits and vegetables. We also train locals on their water system to help understand things such as the volume of their water system, how much chlorine we should put in a system to kill all of the bacteria. And that involves a lot of math calculations. And so you can see papers on the reservoir there. And we will teach them how to do various math calculations to make sure that people in the community have clean drinking water. I also work a lot in the schools with children as young as 4 or 5 years old, all the way up to secondary, which is kids that have 16, 17, 18 years. And so here we're doing a fun exercise where we're actually coloring what some germs look like under a microscope and explaining how they can grow or be present in our water system and things that we can do to help remove them from our water, such as chlorinating the water and boiling the water. This is a picture with my host family. So I live here in Peru with a host family, and they teach me a lot of things. They've taught me how to speak Spanish. They've also taught me how to cook various meals. And I share a lot about my job with them. They explain to me how to get around using public transportation, how to buy food in the market, anything you could imagine for your daily life. They help prepare me for all of that. And so here in this picture, we're making tamales. I do also have some free time. I don't only just work. I do get some time for vacation here in Peru. And so this past year, I went on a river raft race in the Amazon jungle. We had to build our own raft. So the picture that you see here, we built that. We had to cut the wood. We had to tie it together with wires. And then we had to raft it down a river for 3 days straight to try to win a race. And so I get some fun experiences like that with my job as well. I like to do lots of different science experiments with some of my students. So here I'm actually teaching them about germs. And so we put in a bowl of water. And when you do this, if you drop pieces or if you drop soap in the water, all of the pepper goes to the side of the bowl, because we're using this to explain that when we wash our hands and we use soap, it's expelling all the bacteria and the germs that exist on our hands, or maybe on our face as well. But if we don't use soap, it's not going to kill any of those germs or bacteria. So the agency I work for is called Peace Corps, which maybe you haven't heard of, but it is an organization that's part of the government of the U.S. And we send volunteers all over the world. So I'm here in Peru, but there's volunteers in many countries. All of us have different jobs. But I was sent here to Peru specifically to work with water systems and teach children about health and hygiene in school. Here I am inside of a water reservoir. So this is a big tank. We climb down a ladder. We get inside with our gloves and boots and all of our gear because some of the chemicals are really strong. You don't want to breathe them in. And we have brushes and scrapers and any tool you can imagine. And we're trying to clean all of the stuff that's growing inside of that reservoir so that doesn't get inside of the water that comes to your house to drink.
All right, that is wonderful. Why don't we pause there for questions, because I feel like I have lots of questions and maybe Ms. Hagen's students might too. Let's welcome Ms. Hagen's class onto the camera. Hello, Ms. Hagen's class.
Hi, Ms. Hagen.
Hi. Hi, Jackie.
Is anybody sort of watching those first couple of pictures and have a question they'd like to ask Jacqui? Oh, there's a brave first hand.
Did you hear
Yeah,
that?
why don't people have water here? That's a very good question. So I live on the coast and it's very dry here. And in order for people to get water, we don't have lakes or rivers and we can't drink the ocean water. So we have to dig what's called wells. They're deep holes in the ground and we have to get the water from those holes. But we need to use a pump in order to do that. And that pump costs a lot of money. And unfortunately here, a lot of the cost to run that pump is very expensive and people can't afford it. So we typically only will get water once or twice a week just because there isn't enough money to run the pump all day, every day.
Okay, thank you for that great question. Oh, is it going to open a flood of questions? There's another arm. Go ahead.
Mine.
What is your favorite thing to do there?
That's another great question. So my favorite thing is probably working in the schools, teaching kids like you guys, because you're always super curious. You have lots of questions. And I come from a different culture. So I obviously, like you guys, we live in the United States, whereas children here in Peru, they may have a different perspective or may have grown up learning different things in their house about maybe how to wash their hands or how to prepare their food for lunch or how to take a bath or how they wash their clothes. And so I love listening to a lot of their questions. I learn a lot and I get to teach them things about ways that we can help save water or have cleaner drinking water in their house.
Okay, great. Should we take one more question? All right, go ahead.
I was just wondering if, sorry guys, that if you could explain a little bit better the part where they get the water, because I don't think they really understood the where you get water there. Like, because through the pictures, did you guys see that it was very dry desert, right? So do you think it rains there? No. So if you can maybe explain a little bit better that part of where you get the water from underground.
Sure. So I don't know if you guys know, but underground, we have what's called a water cycle, right? So it rains, the water falls, it collects in rivers or lakes sometimes, and then eventually the water will make its way back out to the ocean. But some of that water will seep through the ground. Even if the ground's really dry, it will seep through the ground. And you're always going to find some water really, really deep underground. And so if you drill a big hole, you have to use a machine. You drill a big hole super deep in the ground, you're going to find water. And so we keep digging, digging, digging. Eventually we find water. But in order to get that water all the way up to the surface so that we can have it in our house, we have to use a pump. And that pump uses electricity. And so we put a big pump down there, and it has a tube that comes all the way up to the ground. And so we pump the water up, 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 up into a big tank. And we're going to put that big tank on the ground. And that tank is going to fill with water while we're running the pump. And once it's full, then we can pipe the water from that big tank to all of the individual houses. But we have to have electricity to do that.
And that's another problem, right?
Yes. And that is another problem. Because electricity, as you know, if you have lights in your house, if you have a television, all of that requires electricity, right? To charge our phones, to charge our computers. And so your families probably pay an electricity bill every month, and it costs money. So if you don't have a lot of money, you maybe aren't going to be able to afford your television. Well, in this case, people here, because these towns are really small, sometimes they don't even have enough money to be able to pay for a pump to have water in their house.
Okay. Do you want to take, is there another urgent question before we get back to pictures?
We have one more from Koa for
Yep.
right now.
Sure.
Why did you move there?
Oh, why did you move there?
Great question. So after I graduated college, I really wanted to go live in another country. I wanted to learn a new language, something I never knew before. And I really wanted to live in another culture. I wanted to learn about their food and maybe what music they listen to or what dances they do, things they like to do for fun, just to experience something different than how I grew up. And to be able to use my career as an engineer to be able to do projects in another country where maybe they don't have as many engineers that are able to support them. And so I really wanted to give back to a community with my education.
All right. Fantastic question.
Thank
Can
you.
we jump back to pictures for a little bit, and then we'll come back and do some more questions? Does that sound okay? Okay.
Yes, guys?
Fantastic. I'll move you backstage, Miss Hagen's class. You'll be right there. And let's go back to our picture of Jacqui cleaning cistern.
Sure. So this is how we clean the systems. It's the only way. You have to get in there and scrub really hard for hours.
And this is the tank that you would pump water from a well into twice a week and fill it up for use during the whole week.
That's correct. Yep.
Okay.
And each family, they have a small tank inside of their house, a very small tank. And they're going to fill that up from this big reservoir. And they have 3 or 4 days. They have to make that water last for 3 or 4 days. This is the name of my town, Chinchabaja. This is a mural that we have. And so just to give you guys a little background, where I live is what's called the Afro-Peruvian capital of Peru, meaning that when the Spanish arrived here and they also brought slaves. And so there are a lot of Afro-Peruvian people here where they are mixed between African and Peruvians. And so there are a lot of plantations here. We have a lot of farms that grow cotton, avocados, oranges, apples, grapes, anything you could think of. We probably grow it here. But that's a little bit of a quick history about where I live.
And if we can see on the left side of the picture, is the yellow the outline of Peru, and the red is the area of Peru that you're in?
Correct. So that is the map of Peru. The red spot is exactly my town. So it's on the southern coast of the country, towards facing the Pacific Ocean, which you guys would also be in the Pacific Ocean in Hawaii. So I do a lot of hand washing demonstrations in schools too. And I'm using this is a big plastic water bottle. So a lot of the schools don't have running water, or if they do, a lot of times they run out of water very quickly. So the kids have no way to wash their hands before they eat. And so one thing that we do to help save water is we've invented what's called the tippy tap. And we put water inside a plastic bottle, and I untwist the cap just a little bit so the water trickles out and they're able to wash their hands, and the water falls into the bucket. The dirty water falls into the bucket. They have clean hands. They're able to eat their lunch. And then we use that dirty water to water the plants in the school. So we don't waste any water. This is another reservoir. So this is where we would pump the water from underground into a tank like this in the picture. And here I am with some people in the town. We're doing an inspection of their water tank. So we go around, we look at the outside, see if anything's broken, damaged, maybe it needs to be fixed. And we make a list of all of the things that we could improve about their water system. And then we try to make plans that over time we're going to try to make the water system better. This is one of the ladies in a community that's cooking a bunch of food. So these are big, huge pots where they'll cook rice. Sometimes they'll cook a dish with potatoes or with pasta. And it's to serve anywhere, could be from 40 people to 100, 150 people. But here in Peru, we do a lot of community events. And so it's not uncommon to go into a house and see somebody cooking huge pots of food like this. Here we are mixing, I'm holding a bucket of chlorine. So if you guys have ever gone swimming in a swimming pool, sometimes it has a strong smell. That smell is usually chlorine. And so we use chlorine to kill bacteria. And in addition to that, we mixed it with water, so it dissolves, and then we dump that into the water reservoir because chlorine also kills bacteria in drinking water. And so that's one way that we can disinfect the water system. So that's what we're doing here. Here I am with a young student in my town. We're having a conversation about how to wash some fruits that he likes to eat for lunch. And so what we recommend to families here is they rinse their fruit in a bucket of water and they pour a little bit of bleach, which I'm sure you might be familiar with. Sometimes your families might clean your house with bleach or the bathroom with bleach. So we actually use just a little top, like the cap of a water bottle. And we dump that into a bucket of water and we mix the fruit around and we leave it for 3 minutes and it will kill all of the bacteria. And the reason we do this is because bacteria or germs, as you know, if our hands are dirty, that can make us sick. So if we touch our face, we touch our mouth, our eyes, that bacteria enters our body. And then what happens is we get a stomach ache, or sometimes we throw up, or we have diarrhea, or other sicknesses. And so in order to prevent that, we want to not only make sure our hands are clean, but also anything that we eat or drink is clean and doesn't have bacteria. I'm doing some fun activities in the school here where we blow up a balloon and we decorate it like a germ and we pass it all around and we ask questions and learn about what germs can do to our body. And so, as I mentioned to you guys, germs have existed in the world for millions of years, back to dinosaurs. And so they've had a long time on this planet to be really smart. And we can't see germs with our eyes. If we look at our hands, we can't see what germs or bacteria look like. And so we have to be really mindful about what we do to make sure that we're not putting those dangerous germs into our body. These are students in my school. They are in 5th grade. And they help me with a lot of fun science projects where we learn about the water cycle, and we do different projects on how to save water. And they're very fun to work with.
All right. Well, I see a common thread here of water being very, very important to your everyday life. Not only in how we use it to clean, but to drink, and just clean, safe access to water generally is a really big part of what you're doing in Peru. And I know that that's an interest of Ms. Hagen's class too. So I want to bring them back again and see if those last couple pictures have raised any questions amongst the kids. Do you have any other questions you want to ask Jacqui about her work?
Marina?
Like, is it fun to have one in Peru?
What? Say it again.
Is the job fun for you?
Is that job fun for you?
Yes, my job is very fun because I get to work with a lot of people in the community. I don't work on a computer all day or in an office. I get to go out and talk to people and learn about what they want to improve in their community. So it's a lot of listening. I do a lot of listening, and then a lot of problem solving, trying to find solutions that don't cost us a lot of money, but that can improve the way people live here.
Excellent.
Yes,
Good question.
Sorry, Lauren, do you have a question? Did you hear?
Can you say it one more time, please?
What is the school like there?
What is school like there?
So school
We
here,
saw you. Yeah.
yeah. So my students, they go to school around 7:30 in the morning, and the public schools leave around 1:30 in the afternoon. Whereas the one of the private schools we have, the kids go to school all day until about 4:30 in the evening. And so they eat lunch at school. But the students in the public school, they don't eat lunch. They leave school at 1:30. They go home. They eat lunch with their families. They'll typically rest and then do their homework in the day, or help their families in the farm or with other chores around the house. And as far as classes go, they take classes similar to you guys. They have a little bit of math, science, history, English, art, dance.
Excellent. Can I ask a quick follow-up question? For the students who eat lunch at school, what would be a typical thing that they would eat? Or even students who go home and eat with their families, what would they eat for lunch?
Sure. So a lot of food, the typical food here is always accompanied with rice or potatoes, because potato is Peruvian. And so a typical dish would be chicken with rice and maybe potatoes and some sort of sauce. We do have a lot of peppers here, so they make sauces called ají, which is a little bit spicy. But that would be a very common meal here.
Okay, great. Do we have any other student questions?
Sweet.
What do you teach the students at school?
Sure. So in school, I teach the students about hand washing. So how and why we should wash our hands to prevent us from getting sick. I also teach them about water conservation. So if you can imagine in your head that I give you a bucket of water and I tell you, this bucket of water has to last you 2 days. What are you going to do with that bucket of water? If you have to take a shower, you have to wash your dishes, maybe you have to wash your uniform for school, you have to wash your hands. And so you have to think about what is most important, and then how can I maybe reuse some of that water to do other things. And so we talk a lot about water conservation.
Okay, great question. I see one more hand there right in the front, and then we'll do some more pictures.
What is your like how does the animals drink water and like eat?
That's a very good question. So on the coast of Peru, it's very desert-like. There's a lot of sand. We don't get any rain. So most of the natural animals we have are actually birds. We don't have a lot of land animals. And being that I live close to the ocean, we have a lot of animals that live in the sea. So most of them, their water source is the ocean. There are some people here that have cows and goats, sheep. And so what a lot of families will do is they'll have to walk their animals down to the one river that we have in town, which sometimes is completely dry. If it's not dry, the animals can drink from the river. If the river is dry, the families typically have to find a well, which is, like I mentioned, those are the big holes that we dig in the ground to bring water up to the surface. So they have to bring their animals to a site that has a well, and it'll typically have a hose, like a hose that maybe your family uses to garden your plants, and they'll use that hose to fill a bucket of water so the animals can drink.
Very good questions. Are you ready for a couple more pictures?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's do a couple more pictures. We have lots of pictures, Jackie, so we can sort of go a little bit faster. I know some of these are different versions of the same thing.
Yep, this is another reservoir. This is what we use to fill with water. And then from here, we have pipes out to the houses.
Okay.
Yep. This is in a really rural community. We brought a jug of water with us to teach children how to wash their hands. So here we are teaching them hand washing techniques. This is in a school. We're teaching about illnesses that can come from not treating drinking water. So one thing we teach is that when you're young, so you guys, I'm not sure how old you are, but most children under the age of 8, your brain is still developing because you're learning so much stuff in school, right? Or from your families at home. And so what happens is if we get sick all of the time, it slows down the ability for our brain to develop, for us to be able to learn everything that we want to learn. And so a big problem here is a lot of children get sick from the drinking water because it's not clean. And so they have trouble with sometimes keeping up with school. And so we are trying to provide clean drinking water so that they can focus in school and they can be as smart as they can. I also teach a lot of community campaigns. So sometimes I'll go to a community that has maybe 50 or 80 houses. I'll set up a bunch of tables. I'll put posters on the wall, and we'll talk about different things such as, for example, what does it mean to have clean drinking water? How does the water get to my house? Some people don't know. Where does my water come from? If something breaks in the water system, who's going to fix it? Who's responsible? Do we have money that's going to be able to cover if a pipe breaks? Or do we have, for example, here we have a big problem with mosquitoes that carry a virus called dengue. And that mosquito lays eggs in water. And so if we don't cover the containers of water, then we have problems with all of the people getting dengue. So sometimes we talk about making sure we cover all of our water. with some of the younger students, we do a lot of coloring. So we'll talk about what is cada gota cuenta, and that means every drop counts. So every drop of water counts here. We don't waste any water. And so we like to talk about, for example, if I wash my dishes in a bucket of water, that bucket left that I have of dirty water, I could still use that for something. Maybe I can use that to water the plants, or maybe I can use that water to wash some of the dirt or dust off of my car. So we talk about all of the ways that we can reuse water.
All right, I think that's maybe a good place to stop with pictures. We got a really good sense of how you spend your days. Looks like you get to meet a lot of kids, which is fun. You get to talk to a lot of other students. You posed a question that I thought it might be fun to pose to Miss Hagen's students. Maybe there's a student who might be interested in answering. Do you know where the water comes from that comes out of your faucet? Do you know how it gets to your school or how it gets to your house in Hawaii? Any guesses?
Co-op? Pipes, he said.
Yeah, pipes for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And the rest is kind of magic, right? It just kind of is always there, especially in a place like Hawaii that has a lot more rain than the area where Jacqui lives. So it's really interesting to think about when you get home tonight, especially after you've learned so much from Jacqui about water and the water situation in areas of Peru, to ask your parents or ask your grandparents or ask whoever you live with, where does our water come from? How do we get water into our house? It's something fun to think about. All right, I see a hand in the back, in the way back.
If the water here comes from rivers. Here or in Peru?
Here.
Here, she said. She's wondering if the water comes from rivers in this island.
It's funny. That's a good question. You know, depending on where you live, Hawaii may have multiple sources of water. You guys might have some well water like we have here in Peru. You may have water coming from rain collection. You may have water coming from rivers. You also may have water coming from what's called springs. So there are natural springs that exist, and it could be a combination of all of them. Maybe your parents know, maybe they don't. It would be a good question to ask them.
You can try to stump your parents tonight when you go home. Ask them, see if they know where the water comes from.
And I have a question.
Well, I know that. Yeah.
So, do you guys drink water directly from the faucet in your house? If you're thirsty, do you put your glass of water in the faucet and fill it up and drink it?
No.
Well, some people do, and some people do have filters.
Okay.
And some people have a water machine that makes the pH different in the water. So
Okay.
Some homes have that.
Like me.
So here in Peru, pretty much nobody drinks directly from the faucet. They all boil their water. You have to boil it for about 3 minutes to kill all of the sorts of bacteria that exist in the water. So the next time you take a drink of water from your faucet, just remember that somebody somewhere helped make sure that the water arriving to your house was disinfected and clean.
Mile?
Okay, good. I see a couple questions.
I don't know, but like one of my friends told me that like in the like a country or something, these people like boil water so that all the bacteria like go away.
Right.
That's
the same thing.
good.
Very good. Jacqui, do you know at some point in places outside, everywhere, is our water boiled? Does somewhere along the line is water I'm in Illinois, Miss Hagen's class in Hawaii. Would our water be boiled, or are there other ways to treat water as well?
There's a lot of ways to treat water. It really depends on where you live in the U.S., what your source of water is. Sometimes it goes through multiple processes, such as sedimentation. We use UV lights to kill bacteria, heat treatment. There's all sorts of new technology that they're trying right now. So it really depends. But we use a lot more advanced technology in the United States for drinking water. Here we use much more basic forms because we have the money and the resources.
We have one more.
A couple more questions. Yeah, go ahead.
Does the pipe go to your house and the water pumps from the well into your house, or do you have to put it in a big bucket and bring it to your house?
That's a great question. So, a little bit of both. So some of the houses, we have a tank on our roof, and it's not a giant tank. It's maybe I'm trying to think, maybe about the size of like a shower or a bathtub. And so that's our roof, and so we have a pipe that connects to our roof, and it will fill that with water. But not every house has that. And so if you don't have, or if you can't afford to put a tank on your roof, then there is in the street, every house has their own little, what's called a valve. It's like a little faucet, we'll say. And you connect a hose to it. And then you use that hose like you would to garden. Use that hose to fill buckets of water, and you'll bring those in your house and use them, to take your showers, wash your dishes, clean the house, do laundry. Yep. So it depends. Some people have to do it that way.
Is this an example of one of those, Jacqui?
This is actually a chlorination system. So
Okay.
This is what we use to inject chlorine into the water, which kills all of the bacteria.
Okay, I thought I had found an example, but never mind. Disregard.
But that's about the size, so that you guys have reference, that's about the size of the tanks that people have on their roofs here. And so that has to last you, for several days. You have to be really smart about how you use your water.
All right. What great questions, Ms. Hagen's class. We have time for maybe 2 more questions. Are there 2 more questions that you'd like to ask Jacqui while we have her here joining us from Peru?
Anyone? Did you all ask?
I have a question maybe for them.
Yeah, please.
Go ahead.
No, yeah, go.
Wait, I didn't hear what she said.
She asked the question, yes.
Oh, okay. Why did you move to Peru?
Excellent
I think,
question.
yeah, I mean, I know you mentioned, but I think for them, their understanding of the things that you say, it takes a little time to really sink in, what you share. So if you tell them one more time that you too.
Sure.
Remember when she said she wanted
explain
to
it a little bit differently.
right? Yes.
So imagine that, you grew up with your family, you live in the same neighborhood your whole life, you have your group of friends, you have your favorite food that you eat, your sports that you play. And then after 20 years, when you grow older, you're bigger, you studied, and then all of a sudden you decide, I really wonder what it's like to live in another country or somewhere else in the world. The world is huge, right? Do you guys know how many countries there are in the world? Probably not. But there are even more. There's even more than that. So there's a lot of places that we don't know about in the world, right? And every country is a little bit different. And so when I finished school, I really wanted to know what it would be like if I grew up in another country. Well, I wonder what they eat. What language do they speak? What do kids do for fun? How do they dance? What does their grocery store, if they have one, look like? And so that's why I decided to move here to Peru. I wanted to see what another country looked like.
We
Great
have one more
question.
question.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Lee.
I've been learning about space since I really like space. And what is your favorite planet?
I didn't hear his question.
He said he's been learning about space and he wonders, what is your favorite planet?
Oh, my favorite
Just to learn more about you.
I don't know if I have a favorite planet. Maybe Mars.
Cool.
Mine is Venus.
I have a
Venus.
question. So from your experience so far, what are some similarities that you have found between the children, like you growing up in your own childhood and the children in Peru?
Sure. So I would say some of the similarities are a lot of them, like you guys, they still want to play after school. A lot of the girls play volleyball and the boys will play soccer. They also do lots of arts and crafts. They like to play in the playground together, ride their bikes, go to the beach. We live very close to the beach. And so that's very popular in the summer. They go to school normal like you guys for most of the year, and they have their summer vacation. And they're also super curious about other countries in the world. So they always ask me, what is the United States like? What does it look like? What do people eat? And so I would say those are the main similarities. Some of the differences would probably be that the culture, their families raise them a little bit differently than maybe your parents do. So families here are very family centric. And also my site is somewhat religious. So there's a lot of religious holidays. Maybe the way that they celebrate their birthdays is different, or it's also very common that all the families eat lunch together. Everyone sits at the table and has our big lunch together. We don't really eat dinner. So there's a few differences there.
All right. What a great question. I have one thing to add for the young person who asked about Jacqui's favorite planet. She may not have been off of Earth yet, but she does have a superpower, and I can't let her go without talking about this. And Miss Hagen has this superpower too. Can anybody guess what their superpower is? Besides that they're teachers, there's something else.
A teacher.
Yes, they are a teacher. That is a superpower. You're right. There's one other thing that they can do that not everybody can do that gives them superpowers. Go ahead.
Science.
Huh?
Science.
Yeah, that may be true. Miss Hagen, you may do science. I don't know for sure. But yes, that would be a superpower, but it's not what I'm thinking about. Oh, let's take one more guess.
Errol?
Yes.
Learning.
Teaching.
You're very right about learning and teaching, but the thing that I was thinking about is that they can speak more than one language. That they can they can communicate in English, and what's the second language?
Spanish, she said.
Spanish, that's right. And Jacqui, maybe as a final question I have for you, when you are meeting with kids in Peru, what language are you speaking in?
Sure. So all of my students, they only speak Spanish. They know maybe just a few words in English. But what's been really nice is I had to learn Spanish coming here. And so they've actually helped me learn and improve my Spanish. So sometimes when I'm teaching, maybe I don't say something right in Spanish. And they'll always correct me, and they're always super nice about that. But yes.
All right, wonderful. Well, that is about all the time we have today. Miss Hagen's class, it's been so much fun to see you. Thank you for joining us and for all your great questions. Do you want to give a big goodbye and thank you to Jacqui before we let her go?
Bye. Bye, Jacqui. Thank you so much
Bye-bye.
for meeting
Thank
with us.
you.
All right.
Thank
Well,
you.
I'm gonna say a quick goodbye to everyone else who's watching the recording today. That's all the time we have. Thank you so much, Jacqui. Thanks to our entire YouTube live stream audience for joining. For those of you who are going to be watching the recording, this is the second live stream of Jacqui's virtual exchange expedition to Peru. Lots of articles already on Jacqui's virtual exchange homepage and several more to come. So make sure you don't miss any other aspects of her virtual exchange. Jacqui, this was so much fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys. Love all your dancing.
Bye-bye.
And thank you. Bye.